Okay,
thankfully.
good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 17th Select Board meeting. We're in very unprecedented times, and I want to read to you a letter pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Southampton Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching public access TV, Spectrum Channel 191, or via computer. To watch on your computer, tablet, or phone, go to zoom.us/join, JOIN, hit join a meeting in top right section, type in meeting ID number 761-904-3998. I'll just repeat. It's type in meeting ID number 761-904-3998 and hit join. Be sure to mute your device when joining in. Note, to join in video meeting with the cell phone, you will need to download the Zoom app from the App Store. I also want to let everyone know that our town administrator, Ed Gibson, put out a communication from the Select Board and from the Emergency Management Director and Board of Health with contact information for all of our town departments. And there's a phone number I want you to know, which is 413-529-0106. This is a point phone number into Town Hall, and we encourage anybody that has any safety concerns or needs anything to call that number. So with that introduction, I will now start by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we do have an amended agenda because of the COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak and pandemic. But I just want to say that this is the time that we take care of each other as a community. And so I'm hoping that if people have needs, that they please reach out to neighbors and certainly reach out to the Select Board or the Town Hall at the number I gave you. We also have all the town departments and the communication that was sent out on our website. So please, either the web or by phone number, please let us know how we can help. This agenda is being amended to let you know that due to the COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak and due to the Governor Baker's order of the Town Hall is closed to the public in regards to public meetings of the Select Board unless otherwise postponed or canceled. Otherwise, it's being live streamed, as I mentioned. Let's see. If you email a written public comment before the scheduled Select Board meeting, it will be read at that Select Board meeting. If you email a written public comment after viewing something at a live stream Select Board meeting, it will be read at the next Select Board meeting. Please send your public comments via email to selectmen@townofsouthampton.org. Please note that all public comments must be within the requirements of the policy on public comments listed in the open time for the public below. And so that is also published on the agenda. So I've already given the information about joining by Zoom or on your phone. So with that, we have a joint meeting of the Southampton School Committee, but actually they don't need to have an agenda. So this is for the purpose of two appointments. Two residents to fill unexpired school committee terms until the May 2020 annual town election. We have two, Austin Rogers and Allison Radon. So, hi, John, how you doing? Is either of them here or coming?
Austin is.
Austin is. Oh, okay. So, is it all right? Does he want to come in and just have
Somebody.
a couple? Or is he allowed to come in?
The question would be, do we have a need to have him come in?
Over the numbers, so.
Oh, we're over the numbers. Okay. Okay.
In this particular case, I'd probably just ask the chair of the school committee to answer this.
Yeah. Okay.
For the recommendations.
Okay. Sure. Okay. All right. You can speak to either or both of them then. We'll start with Austin Rogers. This is effective immediately. The term to expire May 19, 2020 to replace Doreen Bashista.
Correct.
Okay.
Allison's position would be to fill Aaron Kuchar's position, which terms on the 31st of this month.
Okay.
Did you, were you guys able to vet these, or how many candidates did you have? Did you have options, or?
There were 4 that were interested, 2 that submitted letters of interest.
Okay.
Okay.
Both individuals that submitted letters have already pulled their papers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Good,
So they're
good,
interested in continuing.
good.
That's good. Okay.
That's going to be my question, yeah.
Are these? Oh,
Okay.
okay. Hi,
Here we go.
Austin.
Hi.
Yeah. If you want to just come up to the podium here. Yep. Yeah, thanks. But thank you. The Select Board welcomes you, and also we wanted to see just a little bit, hear a little bit about you and your interest in being on the school committee.
Okay. So I heard about the vacancies because Matt posted on Facebook.
Thanks, Matt.
I am a stakeholder in Norris because I have a child there, but I also have multiple nieces and nephews there, and I'm a resident of Southampton, so I feel like all residents are stakeholders in the school. And so, there are pressing issues that face the school from time to time that, need members of the community to step up and be a voice for those that can't. There's lots of people who I know would love to be more active in advocating for the students and the staff and the community at large, but just because of schedules and commitments and, all the parents at school, are parents of young families, and maybe they don't have the space in their life right now to do the same thing. So I'm kind of stepping up on their behalf so that, there's someone there to give a voice to important issues. One of the most pressing ones that kind of got me to be more alarmist about was the contract negotiations that, are getting towards the end, and if we can get that across, that would be awesome. So there are a lot of teachers that are very high quality at Norris. I want to keep them happy, keep them in their positions. I have a lot of experience working with schools. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I have a private practice in Easthampton, serving children, adolescents, adults, families, specializing in trauma. And I did a lot of community-based work. So I have a lot of experience with different school systems. And being in different IEP meetings, for example, it's very clear that Southampton is a cut above a lot of other places. That a lot of other school systems try and do runarounds, play games, and Southampton's just not like that. And so that's another reason, I'm grateful for the efforts that they put forward. Like I said, the staff there is very high quality. We want to keep it that way.
That's great.
Great, thank you.
Anybody have any comments or questions for Austin?
No, I don't think we can ask for a better
Thank you.
candidate.
Yeah, you have a
Good.
great background for being on the school committee, so thank you very much for offering
you.
to step up.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Great.
I appreciate it a lot.
Sure.
I mean,
Someone
it's a bunch of, I mean, just speaking a little bit personally, but it's a bunch of work. I know that having some kids is challenging too, and you'll certainly be pressed for time, but
Yeah.
I very much appreciate it.
It's a great window too in the school when you have kids that go there to then be on the school committee. It's a great position to be in, I think. So would someone like to make a motion? Do you have anything else to add? You want? No? Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept Austin Rogers' application for the school committee.
I'll second it.
Great. Any further discussion or question? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, roll call vote. Right.
Martin, aye?
Tishman, aye.
Roland die.
Falls eye.
Roden, aye. Well, they don't have a quorum, right?
They don't have a quorum.
Still have to,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Great. Congratulations and thank you very
thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward.
So you're going to be sworn in while you're here, right? Do you need this signed first? No? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Seems like he's got some great background there.
That's
Yeah, that's great.
Wow.
So I don't know if the select board is in favor of moving on the next candidate as well.
Did I hear that that person's coming in at 6:30 or no?
No, she's at home now. She's on return from a truck.
Okay,
She's not available for a week or so, but
okay,
by the time the vacancy comes up on March 31st, we'll just see
okay.
if she's acceptable.
Okay, I'm comfortable. Do you want to speak on her behalf, or do you want to?
She submitted her letter.
Okay.
Of interest, strong ties to the community. Again, another resident that is just.
Okay.
Maybe we could read her,
I think she
read
has.
her letter.
I think she has children in the
Do you have a
school as
letter?
well.
I don't. Is it on the back or something?
I'm happy to read it. You want
Yeah,
me to read
that
it?
sounds great.
All right, this is from Allison Radon, her application to serve on Town School Committee. I would like to submit a letter of interest to the Town of Southampton School Committee. I have a master's degree in Montessori education, a bachelor's degree in education, minoring in English, history, and special education. I've been teaching for the past 13 years at, I'm going to probably not pronounce this correctly, Jurina Elementary School in Springfield, and one summer school session at Norris Elementary School as well. At Jurina School, I served 2 years on the school decision-making team and helped to make many positive changes to the building as well as for the staff. I have always ensured that my classroom is supportive to all abilities and well as cultural differences. It is extremely important to have strong parent-teacher community communication and relationship. I have lived in Southampton for over 10 years and have a child who attends Norris. I have a bold personality and feel I have a strong voice to address any concerns I feel necessary. Having a strong educational background helps me to have proper knowledge to know the teachers as well as the parents and the feel of the community. I have always had a strong interest in community involvement and helping to further improve our town. My teaching belief has always been that all students have the ability within them to learn, grow, and succeed. I feel that I am the right candidate for the school committee position as I am committed to providing for the best interests of the school, the town, and the students. Thank you for consideration, Allison Radon. I mean, I think she's a very qualified candidate.
Yeah. Sure sounds like it.
Yes.
Anything
Does.
to add? Nope. Anybody want to?
I'll make a motion, we accept her application to the school committee.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? No? All in favor then?
Well,
Aye.
you need to do
Roll
roll
call
call.
Burton, aye.
Tishman, aye.
Road aye?
Roland, aye.
Fowles eye.
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept. Okay, all I'm gonna do is vote aye. Over aye.
Great. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. That's two very qualified people to join the board.
So, John, are we rounded out there, or are we still down a member?
No, we're fine until the election, but, the
Okay.
election gets pushed, then we have Mrs. Ahern until the election.
Okay, and then come the election, the two people that we just appointed are pulling papers, and then we'll need somebody else will have to pull papers as well.
So-
Or are you going to pull papers and continue? You're not.
Your positions are off ballot.
Your position, you'll pull papers though. Okay. All right. So then we'll need one more.
So a quick
Full
question,
papers.
what happens if the election gets pushed and whoever is ending their term, there's going to be a gap there? Does it automatically extend under this type of law?
It would extend until a successor is so elected
So we're covered.
to replace that person,
Okay.
unless that individual were to choose
To step
to
down.
resign
Right.
at that point in time.
Okay, thanks.
So the people stay in their positions until an election
Right.
supersedes it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great.
All right,
Yeah,
thank
thanks
you.
very much.
Good job. Good times.
I got
Ed,
both.
you had recommended that we cover another item out of order because of the town clerk. Which one is that? I'm looking at the,
The signing of the election.
Thank you, John.
Town caucus,
okay.
special debate election. Yes, I have.
That looks like it's pretty far down on the,
It's under signatures required.
PCFs?
The election was.
Under other documents. No, I
Oh,
didn't
other
see it
documents.
here.
right, I see it on the agenda, but do we
I
have,
don't-
do we have information on it in the packet or no?
No. No.
Okay.
One piece of paper that you all have to sign so I can post them.
Oh, okay.
To have the copies and to have the special election.
Okay.
Okay.
And you signed one the last time, but election sent me another one for the special election. So I'm just having you sign it again, just to be safe. We don't even know if we're going to have the election
Right, right.
with everything that's going on, but I have to post it, so
When is the election?
March 31st.
And it's only the state senator on the
State
ballot?
senator,
Yeah.
right.
Specials, yeah,
Okay, so this is just signatures required, right? We don't have to
Yes,
vote
yep.
on anything.
yeah.
Okay, so both of these, one of them is the warrant for the annual town caucus, and it
Yep.
lists the various positions that are up.
Yep.
Take this time to encourage people to, be on committees. We've had a little bit of a problem with this year, so please look to see what positions are open, and please
Yep.
step up and help out our community. And the other one is for the state senator election, which is on the 31st of March. Okay, so we'll just sign them.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We don't know if they'll get postponed or rescheduled or not, but especially the caucus, because it's so close.
I'm assuming everything will get
Yeah.
postponed, but it's just an assumption.
They have there has been letters sent to the state to see if there could be postponements. And if that happens, if they pass that, we'll have to get you all to sign off on it and vote to reschedule
Right.
it, so. But
Yeah, they
we'll
actually
wait
had
to
a
find
couple of
out.
elections today, didn't they? Two of the states kept their primary going.
We'll have to meet again just to postpone it? That kind of stinks. We'll have to
We'll
meet
just have to
again just
meet
to
to
postpone
vote on a date to postpone it too, but I have some dates in mind if we have to
Okay.
do that, so, yeah.
it. Yeah.
A lot of town clerks are worried about the 3 feet distance and, so many people coming in at once, and so we're all trying to figure it
Yeah,
out,
that's gonna
especially
be
we
how
have one
it's gonna look.
precinct, Westfield has 12.
Oh, my.
Actually, to
one
answer
polling
your
place, so,
question, Matt,
but-
the special state election warrant or election is really up to the state, so it might be a possible special meeting just to vote to reopen this building to the public, to actually let that occur if it stays on the 31st.
Have we expended any money on that?
What?
Have we expended any money on that?
No, not yet.
And we won't. When will we? Like for
After-
printing ballots and stuff, and do
No,
the ballots
the
have a
state-
date on it, or does it not matter?
They have a date on them, yeah, but
But the state does that. That's not out of
they'll
our
have to
budget.
reprint, yeah, with a new date,
Okay.
so, I mean,
So we can run this right up to the last day and not spend any
yeah,
money
I
on this.
mean, I assume that they're probably going to postpone it, but I heard today that, some of the candidates are saying they're not going to postpone it, so I don't know what's happening. But,
And then they'll give a protocol for
Voting.
making certain that the voters are all safe and
yes,
under this.
some of us town clerks have been talking about having absentee ballot only voting as a possible way to get the ballots in, but, that's not going to bring a lot of turnout, so,
What about the people that have already absentee voted? Will those votes count in the event of
yeah.
a postponement?
yep, they'll count, we can still count them, so, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so thank
you
you,
very
I
much.
appreciate that, and I'll let you all know what's happening.
Thank you
If I
very
need to
much.
get, another vote from you guys to change stuff, all right?
Thank you.
Thanks for what you're
Thank
doing. Thank you.
All right, stay safe, everyone.
You too.
You too, thanks. Next, unfortunately, is a couple of resignations. The first is Pat Monahan from the Finance Committee, effective immediately. Ed, he was also on PQB, right? Is this,
Yes.
Yes, but that's basically an appointment of the Finance Committee to the PPB, so now that he's not there, they would...
isn't that an elected position?
No.
Well, there are
Same
some
way, I'm
elected
appointed.
and there's some are
Oh, he's an
appointed.
appointee from the Finance.
Finance.
He's a
Okay.
voting member of PQB, just
Oh,
like I
okay,
am.
okay, I get it.
But only because I'm
I
here.
see. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
So the Finance Committee would
right,
end up nominating and electing someone else to fill that appointment.
okay. And there's also a resignation
sure
from
that we need
Charlie
that.
from the Public Safety, Charlie Kinnicky from the Public Safety Building Committee, and there are letters from both of them in our packet.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess since there's nothing we can do about either, I'll make the motion, we accept both of them.
Second.
Is there any further discussion, question?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, I guess for Charlie, in your letter, you said you felt that the community's goals have changed. Could you?
Talking about the resignation from the public
Yes,
safety
your
complex.
resignation letter. Do you want to expound on that? I mean, I'm just trying to understand.
I believe that we have.
You want to come to the mic?
Sorry.
Sorry. You know the drill.
Boy, do I know the drill. I prefer not to comment on it other than what the letter says. We're here to deal with a crisis in town and in the nation, and I'd rather not get into
Okay.
that kind of discussion at this point.
Okay. Well, let me take this opportunity then to say thank you for the incredible number of years that you served on this particular committee and trying to, the pendulum swung so many different ways over the years, and just want to say thank you for your service to the committee and trying to drive things forward.
I enjoyed it, and I thank the town for allowing me to do this. And as you can see, my resignation also states that the door is still open if things change around again.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlie.
Great, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. If there are any other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no hearings and we have reports. Would anybody like to start? We probably haven't had a whole lot of meetings.
I mean, I do actually want.
I'm sorry, we don't want to hold Charlie up. Thank you for, Charlie, you want to come and speak for the update? Like Charlie was saying, 2 weeks ago when he was supposed to be here, there was not much going on.
Yeah, we started off with this being a quarterly meeting.
Yeah, and before Charlie starts, I'll just say that not only is it the quarterly EMD report, which is going to turn into 99% of COVID-19 coronavirus, so this is also going to cover the agenda item under COVID-19 update.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to start off with very positive notes saying that we haven't declared any emergencies in town in some time. Things have been moving along. We are moving with Eversource and the tree warden to address all these dead trees in town and trying to make sure that we have power, and that we have moved forward with the electrical contractor. He's given us a price of about $400,000 to put an emergency generator into the North School. I spoke to Mass Emergency Management about federal funding for that. They were very candid saying that it's at a low end of the priority to do that. I had put in a request to the Capital Committee for about $20,000 for a cost-benefit analysis for the generator, but seeing the handwriting on the wall, I took that off the request with the understanding that we would revisit this down in the future sometime. And then everything was going along fine until, as you noticed in the last couple of weeks, we have been ramping up, and we are playing, how would I say this, chase with the state and federal government as to what's being expected of us, and we're responding in a timely manner based on what we're being told. We're to the point now where all town offices and buildings are closed to the general public. We are trying to maintain services through mail, email, telephone, drop boxes. I think we're going to find that's going to be the norm of the day for a long time. Our fire department is gearing up more and more on how to deal with responses with the ambulance relative to this. They're going through more training, more education on this topic. Our police department's going through the same thing. Our Board of Health has been inundated with calls and issues relative to this. We've also have another layer that's developing, and that's the fact that this is going to start costing the community money. We were notified by FEMA that they are now going to take and look at an accounting system for us to monitor what our additional expenses are. So hopefully down the road we can take and get federal assistance with this. It's not just Southampton, it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
We just got notification from the State Department of Public Health this afternoon that the governor's allocated money directly to the local health departments. And I met with the health director today about putting together a shopping list of materials we're going to need, possibly another staffing personnel to deal with the phone calls and all that. We're going to put a bundle together to submit it to the Commonwealth with the hope that some of this actually gets approved and funded. That'll help us. But I got to be very candid. This is sort of like every 10 minutes we're getting an update from either the federal government or the state government changing things that they're expecting of us. I stopped at Pure Food today just to talk. They're keeping up with supplies. I did not go into Big Y, but my understanding is that they're keeping up also. Gas stations don't seem to be impacted enough to talk about. I guess that's it. Basically, we're constantly getting updates, and we're having our meetings at the EOC and trying to coordinate everyone.
Yeah, I was just, is the state giving any resources, like to the fire department for gear, for responding to situations where there might be a positive COVID?
Right now, what they're doing is they're providing education for the fire departments relative to how to respond. Our dispatch service has now changed some of the questions when a call comes in to try to establish what they're responding to. Because of the limited amount of personal protection equipment we have, we try not to have everyone turn out in protective equipment only to go down there and find out somebody sprained the knee.
Yeah.
So we're trying not to utilize that equipment unless we feel there's a need. There's been a lot of discussion with the fact that we don't have a positive case in town right now, but eventually we will. And the health department monitors what's known as the MAVEN, which is the communication system that goes to all the health departments that advises them of all the contagious disease issues in the community. This goes on normally all the time. People just, if I was going to be talking to you about tuberculosis, you'd be sort of going, yeah, so, but it goes on all the time. The way this is appearing to run, the health departments are going to be notified of positive cases, and they're going to be able to, how would I say this, advise dispatch through the police chief or fire chief that there's an issue at a household, only so that the responders will be prepared. But this has to be kept in confidentiality, so it's going to be very limited as to what is actually exchanged. I have not seen any funding to the fire departments or EMS through the Commonwealth.
Or not additional supplies of masks or
I'm looking at supplies,
PPE?
yeah.
My understanding is that the Commissioner of Public Health last week asked the federal government to release materials from the Strategic National Stockpile to be used relative to this. Some material was distributed, but my understanding is it went more to the trauma centers and the hospitals than it went to the EMS.
Yeah.
And it's simply because they're triaging this as the priority of what they have.
What kind of calls are coming into the Board of Health?
Basically, I'll call it the worried well. Do I keep my daycare center open? Aunt Louise was down seeing Uncle Joe, and Uncle Joe's got a cough. And how do I know it's not this and that? I put in your packet this evening through Ed the actual questionnaires that if a MAVEN call comes in and it's positive, that the Board of Health would use to screen out people. I also put in there the fact sheets on isolation and quarantine. So if you have a question with someone, those fact sheets pretty much will answer those questions.
Now, can we get these fact sheets to the general public?
I've asked Jerry the possibility of posting them on the town's website, and I don't know what the status of that is, but the fact sheets getting up there would be helpful for everybody.
Yeah,
It really would, yeah. And on our main page too, not somewhere buried that somebody has to go find it.
And we don't want the questionnaires posted, but the fact sheets
Just
would
fact
be.
sheets, yeah.
I gave you the questionnaire so you had an understanding of what's being asked of people.
Just got to interrupt. Ed, I don't know if it matters or not, but your screen went blank there.
Oh, another quarter.
Pretty much.
Okay, the other question, I don't know if you're the person to answer, can direct people where they might go. A lot of people in town are interested in volunteering to help if they got a sense of what the need is, could we put some kind of little response team together that could assist people with whatever their situation is?
I believe the request is admirable. I think would be very timely at times. The problem is that the town's never set up a volunteer service that's encompassing of all the different issues. We have volunteers that work for Council on Aging. Maybe that's a starting point.
Yeah, we were going to use the same Corey form. I mean, because obviously anybody who would be involved would have to be checked out.
And then we have the other side of this. If we have volunteers that are 60 and older, they fall into the classification of basically shouldn't be out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but there's, I don't know. It's probably worth considering. I mean, everybody's out of work, so.
You would think there'd be a core group out there, and there probably is.
There is. I mean, there is. Yeah.
We getting an email from someone who said, my teenage daughters are out of work, they're willing to help. So I think it's a matter of making the connections to people who could use, even someone running to the grocery store from them, like community sort of helping people sort of situation.
And how would we put something like that together? We would need a call center here, someone to record that, and then to match it with the people who are willing to do it.
Right, which means that we'd have to designate a town employee or two to be manning that phone to put that together.
Or you do that with volunteers too.
You could do that.
But there still needs to be someone that's overseeing them. And,
I think the reason why I'm mentioning it, the reason why I think I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm mostly concerned about is that I think for a lot of the population, they're not working. And then I think for a lot of the non-working folks, they're also probably huge potential for not getting paid.
Well, there is, according to Jerry Swanson, who just texted me, the Medical Reserve Corps, which has existed for a long time. That would be the volunteer group that I think we would direct them to.
Okay.
And that covers all the area here, not just Southampton.
Okay.
They're on the website. The MRC is on the website. So I think that's where I would direct people to. And that's what Jerry's telling me off a text.
So that's for the people who are requesting help, but for the people who are offering
That's
the
for the
help.
people that are offering the help, they would go to the MRC.
Okay.
The people requesting help, you would still need to have a line here for them to call in, okay?
Okay.
I think the MRC, I had worked on assembling some folks when the H1N1 came about, and I think we're really talking about more of a grassroots community level thing. We're not talking, MRC is health people, EMTs, nurses that are able to help in a pandemic, mass immunization situation. We're talking about my neighbor is 88 years old and needs someone to run to the store. So we're talking more of a grassroots, community-based helping exchange.
Well, here's the catch-22 of this.
Right.
If the town establishes that
Then there's
volunteer A and B and C, we have a call from somebody that's in need of help. If we don't screen these individuals to send them over there to make sure that the individuals we're sending are not the problem.
Yeah, I know.
I think when it's endorsed by a municipality, I think that's why it might have to be sort of like the caring bridge when people have an illness.
It's just going to have to be separately done.
It's probably going to have to be done by some,
Individual in the community.
IT savvy person who could really set up a call on their phone situation. I think it might be very difficult for the town to take that on because of the liability that comes with automatically having.
Yeah, if we just create a forum whereby this information is exchanged, and that's all I'm looking for.
I think
You can put that as a
Easthampton is starting to
bulletin
do that,
board,
guys.
but again,
Easthampton, I think, has started to do something like that, where there's a couple people that offered, and then they've just sort of become the head people to organize it. So anybody wanting to volunteer is feeding into that person or those persons as just a volunteer group, but they're not. You're right. There's no supervision of them, and I don't know that they've started doing anything other than just gathering people together.
But we have a core group of people who are already Corey checked. There are other people who are wanting to volunteer, and we would put them through that same process, I'm thinking.
I mean, you as the select board have the authority to decide how to move this. If you want my observation, I see no problem with this, other than the fact that you need to be careful that you're not endorsing it as the town, that this individual is coming to this person's home.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I hear you.
And it needs
I
to be
see
handled
where the
separately.
difference is,
You know, it's my street, you know, half the street, everybody knows everybody else. They literally walk into each other's houses without knocking even, you know. But that's because they all grew up together and so know each other. But we have so many neighborhoods in this town that no one knows who their neighbor is.
New message is received from Jerry Swanson, Bow, Southampton.
Jerry, why don't you just come here? Did you hear what I said, Jerry? Why don't you just come here?
So it almost sounds like it needs to be like a neighborhood watch. You watch out for your neighbor. Yeah.
All right, okay.
Or, you know, like Mike, who sent the email, maybe just somehow having a group of people through the Facebook with a phone number, someone's willing to be the point person or something. I think that might happen.
All right, I'll talk to him about that.
Here's the concern of the day. Presently, all of our staff is healthy, being the town, okay? If this actually starts to blend out, I'm 68 years old. So on and so forth down the line. People start feeling ill, they're not going to be reporting to work. This means Matt is going to be taking care of everything.
Boy, he put the rest of us in a group, didn't he?
I mean, we're all laughing, but there's the reality of it. You know?
So any other questions for
Great.
Charlie?
So I'll have to quit my day job.
You need to get a little gray.
Any
Just,
other questions? Go ahead.
I'll definitely get
Just,
bolder.
because I attended the 3 o'clock meeting at the EOC today, at least as a layperson, I found some information, and one of them is they said they have roughly 200 cases as of today, and if I got the notes right, roughly 1,400 patient specimens were tested at the state lab. That's like a 1.5%. So if you extrapolate that, that's a huge number. And also, CDC announced a new protocol to release patients from quarantine last night, which is going to make it easier to get patients out of quarantine or
right.
self-quarantine.
Basically, they're not going to need 2 tests to be negative to be able to be released. Okay? The problem is still going to be the fact that testing is a picture in time.
Yep.
We test you today, you're negative. That doesn't mean that next week you're negative.
But at least they get out of that particular quarantine or self.
Right, but what I'm saying is if you got a chest cold,
Yep.
sinuses are, I mean, we're starting to get into pollen season again.
Yep.
You go and get a test done and you come back negative, a week from now, you actually start picking up this virus and showing symptoms. That test you had that week before means nothing.
Yeah. No, I guess my point was it was more difficult before. Now it's easier, but your point is it could reoccur again.
Right, and that's part of the dilemma here.
Yep.
The other part to the dilemma is when they say, okay, if somebody has been exposed positive for 7 days and now they have no fever and they didn't use medication to reduce the fever, then after that 7 days they're looking at the possibility of releasing them without testing. They're speculating that the person's on the mends and things are going. That could change again when they start doing more science and start discovering that maybe that wasn't the right formula. You can watch through this whole thing and you can see there's a learning curve developing through all this.
Right. One thing, Fire Chief said the ambulance runs are down quite a bit, which is a good thing in a way, you know. So
Ambulance runs are down, emergency rooms are down.
right.
What do you call it? Urgent care is down.
Yep.
But I think what's happening is people are hunkering down in their homes and they're just taking care of themselves and watching.
Yep. They're listening to the advice, which is
Yeah.
good.
Well, that's what they should be
Now,
doing.
tell me if I'm wrong. The website is mass.gov/2019 coronavirus to get updates. Is that accurate?
I don't know off the top of my head,
Yeah,
John.
that was the one.
All the
But it sounds-
highways, they're putting mass.gov, and then
Yeah.
I think there's something right at the homepage.
Okay.
I think it'll bring it right to it anyways. It's just, it's all over the state website.
Yeah,
It was interesting, though.
yeah.
And that's part of the dilemma we're having as professionals in town. You're listening to a conference call or meeting with the president. Then you're hearing another one from the CDC. Then you're hearing another one from Mass Emergency Management. Okay? And then you're hearing one from the State Department of Public Health. And this could happen all in one day. And you're watching each agency draw off the other one until you get to a conclusion at the end of the day of what's expected. And then we go into a mad rush the following day trying to get that new information out to the public.
Well, I think the important thing, too, at a time like this is to try to listen to the advice from some of the reputable sources, you know, DPH and CDC and local public health folks. I think at a time like this, there's also a lot of misinformation. So I think the important thing is to stay safe and quarantine as much as you can. And I think what I'm hearing is, you know, schools are closed, and so then let's get together and have a lot of people gather together. I mean, that defeats the purpose of it. So to try to, you know, create new ways of being separate.
Well, I mean, and this is not any disrespect, so please don't take it the wrong way, but it's like social distancing. You're all sitting too close to each other.
We violated it, yes.
I mean, you know, I could go in the car, get the laser rangefinder, and basically write you all up. But
I do notice that the one, two at the end have now moved in closer.
yes,
Where I originally set up.
That's where the microphones are, though.
That's the problem, yeah.
it draws them in. But, yeah, I mean, we're laughing, and it's great. And I hope that through this whole thing, we all have a sort of a sense of humor, and we can just get through this and keep going. But I honestly believe in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be some trying times, trying to make sure that we're ahead of this and so on and so forth. And we're a small town with limited resources.
That's right.
Limited personnel. Our COOP plan, which is supposed to be an operational plan that if Mrs. Groden gets sick, then the vice chair takes over. If the vice chair gets sick, then another, so on and so forth. It's a small group. If the emergency manager gets sick, the baton gets handed to the fire chief, and then to the town administrator, and then to you. But we all could be sick at the same time.
Yeah.
Could you just, I think I saw an email about, aside from the buildings being closed, there was something about the parks, use of the parks. Was there something from SYA or something that came out? I only caught it briefly. I didn't see the whole thing, and maybe we could reiterate what that was.
Going to fill in some pieces after Charlie finished, but that is one of the pieces that from Governor Baker's order the other day, which basically closed restaurants and bars to serving food or alcohol inside. Still lets them serve food if somebody wants to come in and take it out, or now they're ramping up for delivery, number one. His original order was for no one meetings, gatherings, sporting events with spectators over 25.
Yeah.
As of 3:30 this afternoon, we found out that 25 has dropped to 10. But yes, the Park Commission reached out to me and asked if, because of Governor Baker's order, if it was pertinent to post our parks where there is soccer, softball, baseball fields with the notice that due to Governor Baker's orders, there would be no sporting events at those until further notice. So yes, they have moved forward with that.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask you one more question, Charlie? What is the distinction that towns are making relative to calling a state of emergency? Like the state has already issued a state of emergency. For any individual town to do that, what is the threshold?
The threshold basically is once the town has reached a point where it can no longer address the needs of the emergency, that's when an emergency is declared. Typically what you see is, we'll go back to the trees falling down and the power lines. If we dispatch all our police officers to direct traffic and now we're putting firemen on the street to direct traffic, we've reached a state where we can't maintain our services. An emergency is declared so we can legitimately bring in other resources. It also allows us to take and move past the procurement laws to take and allocate funding to address a need, if so be it. The problem with a public health emergency is it's more subtle. It doesn't just, how would I say this? It doesn't have an obvious. And you reach a point very rapidly where you no longer have ambulance service or you no longer have town services, and it could happen in a day or two. So what's occurred is the governor took the initiative to declare a state of emergency so he could bypass certain laws, such as the open meeting law,
Right.
and to allow you to function as you could, but he needed that authority in a declaration. By you as the select board through the town administrator declaring a state of emergency, you too now have a lot of latitude that you can use to deal with problems.
Okay.
It's not a good thing to do. In fact, like I said earlier, I was coming up here to say, hey, look, we haven't any state of emergencies, everything's been going pretty good, you know, but that goes to show just how long it is sometimes, and then never did I believe we would be standing here talking about this.
And are you having regular, I know I went to the first one that was held on the, at the EOC with the emergency personnel. Are you planning regular meetings?
Actually, the state has been doing it by having these conference calls.
Okay.
So it's been bringing us together because we all listen to the same conference call, because we all draw pieces out of that conference call that the other ones miss.
Okay.
Yeah,
So are you having, are you planning, because what you had one today?
Every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, the Department of Public Health is giving us updates. That's the primary one that we've been paying attention to.
Okay.
But we've been also watching, because MEMA sometimes brings up others, as well as other state agencies. So the one on Tuesday afternoon is the primary one. The others, it's spontaneous as to what's developing. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. One of the nice things about this town is there's a very nice working rapport between the two chiefs, the town administrator, myself, and the health department. So, I mean, we're texting Ed at 5 o'clock in the morning just to see if he's up.
That's a true story. I always order mine at 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm going to bed to get even.
Yeah. So that works very well in this town.
Any other questions?
I guess, you know, how do we, what do we tell people who want to be apprised of the most recent information?
Go
Is
to the
everything
Mass
just gonna-
Department of Public Health's website.
Mass.gov.
Mass.gov.
That is going to be the most up-to-date one.
Okay, but I think about people who aren't going to use the internet to get information. How do they get information? I mean, we had one robocall, red code go out. I know we can't use it for just
Well, they're going to have to get it from the
updates,
newspaper,
but-
and, you know, the sources that they normally get it from, no?
okay.
I mean, we can't print and mail.
No, I know we can't. I'm trying to think, what would be the best mechanism to get information out to people?
Well,
I don't know,
Stick my
Francine,
neck
like,
out here.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I know that it's from the heart, but like if a person is are you suggesting like that we try to figure out people that are completely like self-isolated from any form of news? I mean, there's TV, there's newspaper.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I
I'm
mean
not-
about what's going on in Southampton. Southampton people
Well,
want to know about Southampton.
Could we not post something on the two bulletin boards? We've got the Lions Club and the Mothers Club boards for some, if it was something short and concise that was understandable?
one of the things that I was looking for at this year's budget was electronic signage that are portable that could have been put up. I also pulled that out of budget with all the capital requests that were going on. I've now said to Jerry that maybe we can put this in our priority budget with the state
Yeah.
for a couple of those signs. That was already discussed at the meeting today. Basically what these are is they're portable. You can put them in a police cruiser to set them up. They're electronic, and you can take and put whatever topic you want in it. You could set it up in 2 places in town so that people that drive by could see it. But I got to be candid with you. That assumes that the person's driving down the road and reading the signs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and we're heading to a state that's probably not going to be like that.
Pardon?
I mean, we're getting more and more quarantine, so it's not.
Yeah, there's going to be less and less people traveling.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I would not be surprised in a few weeks if this does ramp it the way it's going, you're not going to see much in the way of travel for a while.
Is there anything we could do with Easthampton Media? I mean, is there some of this stuff that we can post there that can just roll on the screen and we can direct
Yeah,
people to
why not?
191?
I think we do.
I'm just looking at ways for people who don't use a computer but would use a television, how do they stay on top of?
I mean, Easthampton Media could do some
need to know
some
stuff.
PSAs, couldn't they? Some public
Yeah.
whatever public
You-
service announcements and so forth.
You can ask them to do that. It's in your contract to have them do it,
Might be an
but
idea.
you need to give material. So one person here needs to be the liaison to the communications for that.
Yeah, I see that as a weak link. You can read a newspaper, but that's 2 days old. I mean, the best is on the website or listen to the news at night. It's,
Well, that's part of the problem. This is such a fast-moving situation that watching the Department of Public Health's website is probably the most up-to-date because they're going to be collating the stuff from the CDC, the World Health Organization, and the President's office.
yeah.
Whereas us, we're in a trickle-down effect also.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if we try to recreate that, we're going to be behind the curve and we're going to be wasting our resources.
No?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, at the very least, let's get the information sheets up on the website. I think the fact sheets, that would be good. I
Well,
think.
Ed, you have those. I think you have them electronically, too.
Take a look.
See if you can, I think I'll see you anyway, so, yeah. Any other questions, thoughts?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Charlie.
It may be that in a couple of weeks when you meet again, you might want to invite me over. Just to see where we're at.
Yeah.
Not that I'm looking to come here every other Tuesday, but like,
And please keep us
Thank you.
up to date, too, of any EOC meetings, okay?
I will make sure Ed's apprised and he can let the board know what's going on. My problem is I have more and more people asking me for, and it's like, even I don't have that time to sit there and try to get all that information out.
Well, and the other thing is if you're meeting in the EOC is you don't have much room for additional people and keeping the 6-foot area.
If this keeps going, and then the people that want to sit here and meet, we're going to end up using this room. But can this room doesn't have a television in it that we can do any live feeds with?
We'll ask.
Yeah, I mean, our first option is upstairs, and that's a much smaller room.
Right. Yeah, we weren't gearing this up to have a large group to meet when we have emergency meetings.
Well, I think the issue was we never thought about the fact with the sizes of these rooms is that we were going to have to keep 6 feet apart from each other,
Yeah, I
too,
know.
which greatly reduces the amount of people that you can get into either the EOC, the upstairs, or even here.
There's just not, we're going to be in the cafeteria of the school at the rate this is going.
I
Okay.
just want to make sure that we're apprised of the meetings, Charlie, because, you know, Francine and I went to the first meeting of the EOC when it was first announced as a problem,
Right.
and I never got an announcement about today's meeting. I know that, John, you mentioned that you had gone, so I'm not sure how you got that announcement.
Only because I called Charlie and asked him
Yeah.
a question, and I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm at the EOC." I said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well,
So I think
stop
we
over."
want, I mean, even if it's a call-in, like we talk about remote participation in meetings, I think if we want to have good communication between the town, the select board, and the emergency management director and everything, I just think we need to be sort of on the same page and make sure that we're all, I mean, I have a speaker that I brought today that's a Bluetooth speaker. It allows for, you know, several people to call into a cell phone. I just think that, I'm not suggesting that we have a large gathering there, but we just want to make sure that we have select board representation at these meetings, so we can't go if we don't hear about them. So if we can just make sure that we're apprised of any meeting that involves all the emergency personnel, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good.
Good.
Have a good evening, guys.
Thanks. Okay, so we're up to select board reports. Like I said, I don't imagine there's been a whole lot of meetings, but would anybody like to report on anything?
Yeah, I'll start. The bylaws committee met. We have completed 2 additional bylaws through collaboration with the relevant departments. We completed one on nuisance with the police department and one on numbering of buildings with police, fire, and the building inspector. What we are in the process of doing is prioritizing those bylaws because we know that the lawyers can't handle them all at once, so that we pace ourselves. But one of the things that is a concern are the legal costs associated with them reviewing the drafts, because essentially, we're looking at 45, 50 articles for them to review and get it on a pace that we can keep up with. But right now, because of this situation, there are other priorities, and we understand that. So we'll put our list together and we'll move it forward. And it's meeting again next Thursday. Thank you.
Anything, John or Chris?
Yeah, we had a Concom meeting last night, basically just routine activity, but we did interview another person who was interested in being on Concom and looks very positive. So hopefully we will be able to fill that slot. We have 2 new members already, so that was looking good, but otherwise it was routine business. And we did try out the new Zoom computer idea here, which worked okay just to get us started to learn how to use this a little bit. Thanks to Ed to set that up. And then the other meeting we had was the Master Plan Implementation Committee, where we just met ourselves as a committee to kind of go through what the next steps would be. We did not have the PVPC consultant with us because we're mindful of the time and cost of using him, and we want to be sure that we're ready to make good use of him. So we spent time talking about outreach, believing that that's really the next thing that's got to happen before we can put any kind of an action plan together. So we talked about outreach objectives, why would we need to do outreach, what were the kinds of things we wanted to do by engaging the public and getting their buy-in for the future direction of the town, not recreating all the focus group meetings that had happened before, but just to have a reaffirmation of current thinking about priorities. We spent some time talking about methods of how we would do that in addition to a typical SurveyMonkey kind of routine. We talked about a variety of ways that we might do that to reach out to the public, which could be, before all this emergency thing came down upon us, we were talking about a variety of neighborhood meetings, posters, flyers, something on Easthampton media, etc. And especially we were looking at the community calendar, trying to figure out what our prime times were to reach out to the public given the events that would be coming up in town over the next few months. So we had made a long list of what was coming up between basically May and August, and thought that those would be prime times to do whatever outreach we were going to do to get the community input so that then we would be ready to make the action plan. So we started doing that. We also looked at the results of the questionnaire or community survey, I guess, that had been done back in 2010-ish, almost, probably about 2010. The results of the survey, some of the questions are ones that we might want to keep again if we do a written survey. But this survey was way too long. It was about 35 questions, and so we would be committed to knocking that down at least by half, to put in more relevant questions to the time and maybe do that on a SurveyMonkey. But we were going to come together at our next meeting with some questions ourselves that we thought would be relevant ones to put on such a survey. So we just started making some progress, and we will have another meeting. I'm forgetting the date, Francine. I don't remember, but it's coming at some point. We may have to do all that remotely because I think our consultant also won't be able to join us in person. But yeah, we'll do what we can in the limited conditions we have. That's it.
Yeah, the next MPI meeting is March 30th.
March 30th, thank you. Yeah.
At 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any updates, select board updates?
No.
There were 2 meetings that I went to since this last meeting. One was the Council of Aging, and they talked a lot about the budget. Our senior center director is submitting for certification, so that's really happy news. They also talked about van service, but a lot of it had to do with just programming and looking forward to the next fiscal year. And then there was an open space review committee meeting, and a lot of that meeting focused on developing a prioritization system for conservation of lands in town. So we started looking at assessors data and maps and coming up with some categorization of the lands for potential conservation interest. So that's it. Ed, would you like to give your town administrator report?
Sure, it's actually very short with everything that's been going on and I've been doing, but the one thing that I would like to bring up and report on to follow up on our town clerk's comments earlier is we do have scheduled the March 31st special town election coming up. We don't know at this point in time. The governor and the legislature have been lobbied to change that date. Whether they will or not, don't know at this point in time. I am kind of hoping that with this recent drop to no gatherings of over 10, that they will postpone that particular special state election. If they don't, as I was explaining to Mr. Rowland before, I still see this building being probably closed to the public at that point in time, so we may need to have a special meeting to allow the public in for that day for voting purposes. Then to follow up on that one, we are working with KP Law on what would be required if we needed to change the town caucus date. Lucy has recommended 2 alternate dates for the both the annual town meeting and the annual town election, to push them off into June. At this point in time, what I see coming forward, I think that is probably a very likely reality to start thinking about. Just the way things are changing and starting to roll out, is I think we're still going to be affected by some type of gathering meeting bans at the beginning of and into the middle of May. So that's basically probably the most important things that I can think of that aren't covered some way or another in our COVID-19 update or some of the other items that are on the agenda this evening.
Okay. Do you want to mention about the open space and recreation plan meeting?
Sure. I've got it on here as an agenda.
Okay.
You know, we did have a meeting last week to start that process up again, because even though we haven't gotten into the contractual piece with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission at this point, we thought it was pertinent to get together and refresh our memories of where we were and what some of the assignments were and who was working on them. I think that went very well. We did set another meeting date for next Monday, which at this point in time looks like we'll probably have to change, but one way or the other, you know, as we get some of our alternate means of remote meetings up, like Zoom and some other things, maybe we will be able to get together remotely and keep that moving forward. I think at this point in time, it might be a while before we actually have Pioneer Valley Planning Commission come back in and meet with us or do any types of further outreach meetings or whatever on that. But I'm confident that moving forward, we're heading in the right direction.
Right. Any questions for Ed? We have a lot of other old business items that we'll just leave just a quick update on, but I imagine with everything else that's going on, there may not be updates. Do you know whether or not Ron was going to come, the tree warden?
Tree warden?
No, I actually, because of when they dropped this to 10,
Okay.
I looked at that one as kind of, Ron can come in at one of the future meetings. So I actually contacted him and asked him not to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
Old business, Easthampton Media, we still have the contract that needs renewal, but because Easthampton Media, several people there are self-quarantined. Thank you, by the way, Ed, for setting up the IT, the link for this to be recorded and gone out live, so appreciate that.
Well, both Jen and Tim remotely on the phone were great. They sent me instructions so we could go live, and then Tim walked me through it on the phone, so it's worked out very well.
Good.
Great. So we're going to go down the list of old business, and I'm just going to ask Ed to give an update, but if there aren't any updates and people would like to have it be on a subsequent agenda, we can just speak up, okay? So obviously the Easthampton Media one, we will need to get that contract going. Anything on the East Street Bridge?
I will let you know that VHB did send me an update, and for whatever reason, Mass DOT contacted them and let them know that they have chosen to send the bridge design to a third-party independent peer review. So we are waiting to hear back from that at this point.
Is that typical?
No, not from my experience.
Is it how, do you know what the delay is? Is there a deadline for that, or?
No, I know originally they had, Mass DOT had 30 days to comment on it, and just about right at the end of that 30-day period, they let VHB know that they were sending it out for a third-party independent review.
We know why.
Okay.
Oh, that's a
All right, I guess we'll
concern.
have to just wait on that one.
Yeah, there would all be guesswork on my part.
Okay. Anything on, so I guess we'll keep both of these on the agenda, right? Next is the Old Town Hall study. I think the last time we had talked about getting some, can we include the information about whether or not the repairs would involve historical, be compliant with historical building?
The two pieces that I asked them about, and Jamie just got back from vacation yesterday, to do the building code deficiency, he's estimated that that piece would be between $4,000 and $6,000. The rest, the compliance with historic regulations, he's going to have to do some further research on to come up with a range for that one. He says usually you don't get into that unless when you actually go and develop your projects, you're looking for state or federal monies to help do that. So to that one I think is down the road. I would like to ask the board to consider authorizing me to sign at least the basic proposal at this point in time for $5,000. Might want to consider doing the 4 to 6 and the building code deficiencies, and probably some of the background reasons on that one. Yes, we would like to know, but to me, maybe one of the benefits, I don't think it's really that an awful lot of money at this point in time just to identify those deficiencies, but that could help us if we got to the point of actually asking for, whether it's $6 million, $7 million, or $8 million for a public safety complex. It would give us some further information to say, okay, well, if we don't do this, here's what we're going to have to do to the old town hall for the police station, and at some point get that. John's already started doing it on the fire side to a little bit, but all of a sudden, if you actually have the numbers and you start looking at those, if you saying, well, we're asking for, and I'm just throwing this out, I don't know how much it would be, say $8 million for a public safety complex. If the improvements that are required to the existing police and fire stations to bring them up to whether it's ADA compliance, code deficiencies, current safety standards as far as exhaust systems and stuff like that, all of a sudden you're looking at $5, $6 million to bring those up. It puts asking for $8 million or approving $8 million for an entirely new complex into a whole different light.
So the baseline envelope study is about 5,000, and they're saying that additional 4,000 to 6,000
If we want
for
to,
the building code.
yeah, for building code deficiencies.
Deficiency, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd be in favor of doing whatever we can do now, because we've got the money available, right?
30,000 is
Well,
what was
yeah.
approved.
Yeah,
CPC.
and be careful with that 30,000 because, and thinking, oh, let's do
Yeah.
the study with it, because these reports are going to come back with certain priorities in them and what have you. Well, they'll have those priorities, but to get dollar costs on what those might cost or what we might ask for, we're going to have to go out and find
Right.
a party to actually do those estimations, and that is what I
That'll
would look
come
at
from
some
the
of those
30.
other, that funding sitting in there. Rather than just say, oh, let's do this study, and spend the 30,000, because it would leave us, in my opinion, short of where we want to get
Okay.
for an end game.
But could we talk about maybe authorizing Ed to spend up to, or sign a contract for up to 10,000 and?
Well, what I would suggest, if you're comfortable with it, I would at least like to move forward with the base proposal, get that going to 5,000. If you're comfortable with the additional 4 to 6, I'm fully in favor of that too. So if you wanted to say, yeah, if you would authorize that base proposal of 5,000 and authorize doing the building deficiencies for between $4,000 and $6,000, I would be happy to do that. I'm not suggesting you don't do the.
Can I ask two more questions about that? One is, there's not a 100% determination yet about the future of that building. Are we spending $4,000 to $6,000 to just determine something that might be irrelevant? And secondly, what capacity does our building inspector have to determine this building codes in the building?
I would say it's worthwhile to have an independent party take a look at that. I mean, some of the things we're grandfathered for, but because of the fact that we're thinking of either modifying that building to keep it as an existing police station, or to be used in the future as we try to protect that outside, so that no critters, moisture, whatever gets in and damages the inside. That I think that is funding and a process much worthwhile, because whether we have to upgrade it as a police station, we should know those deficiencies. Whether we do get a new public safety complex and look at using that, building in the future, I think it's beneficial to know those deficiencies too. I mean, we could take it and say, okay, we'd like to move the Council of Aging over there or something like that. That's our internal use. Flip side of that is, okay, even if we don't do that, it's a historical building. We want to know what part of it we need to preserve or want to preserve. Maybe we put out some type of proposal to say, okay, we would like to get proposals back from developers that would develop this as using maybe the first couple of floors in it as, office space or something like that. And maybe the third floor, could that be a couple of different affordable housing units, housing for, units for the elderly or what have you. There's probably a bunch of different paths that we could go on that point. So, from that perspective, I think we'd be thinking into the future, that it's not, I don't think any of us, because of the historic nature of that building, are thinking of, okay, well, if we move the police department out of there, we just want to, bulldoze or knock that building down. I think we're looking to preserve it and then use it in the future for some, as some aspect.
So paying for the building code information is not going to be wasting money if we decide to do something different with the building. It's still going to be useful information and relevant if we do something in the relative
Absolutely,
near
in my
future.
opinion.
Okay. Any other questions, or what would you like to do?
No, I'll move to authorize Ed to sign the contract for the two the two studies, up to $11,000 combined. 5,000 for one and 4 to 6 for the second one, building code deficiency.
Would anybody like to second that?
I'll second it.
Any other questions or comments about it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we had a presentation of the extended accident and sickness plan insurance options update. Are there any more updates?
No, I've got to sit down with Ed. We got to do a draft RFP. That was at our last meeting.
Okay. Shared building commissioner update, anything?
Nope, we're looking at the inter-town agreement now.
Okay. Anything with the College Highway disposal of real property next steps?
I put that on here just to keep the discussion going and moving forward of doing that, whether it, RFP bid process or what have you, if there were any specific items that the board wanted to discuss again as far as part of that process. I did hear back from both the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. As you asked me, the Planning Board said they couldn't recommend any type of suggestions, restrictions on the bidding process. We can't put any further on, property itself. Concom got back and basically said no real suggestions other than the fact that to remind the potential bidders that there were conservation or wetlands issues on that existing property and that they would have to follow those regulations.
So I think the voters did vote in favor of sort of disposing of that property, and the next step would be we basically did what John had asked, which was to hear back from those two committees. So I'd like to take the next step. So the next step would be to discuss how we're going to go about this, either to put together a bid or what do you suggest?
I think that's part of it. If you like, I'll put together a suggested process and written requirements, what have you, to go out with it, and at least like a draft, and then you can go through it and say, we like this, we like that. Can you change this? Can we do that instead? One of the pieces that I would probably recommend that we put in there is, well, we can or we can't. I might suggest doing a minimum bid requirement. You don't have to do that. But, that's one of the pieces that you can go either way on.
One of the other things, and I'm not sure we can do it, maybe legal has to get involved, is what restrictions do we want to put there? Because we talked about various restrictions, and I don't know if we could say technically what those restrictions are. So is that something, Ed, you think legal has to weigh in on? Basically, we can tell them what we're looking at, and they could come up with some language, because once it's a restriction in the deed, it's got to be done right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you really want to get into restrictions of the deed. My suggestion would be whether that's restrictions or requirements that are actually in the bidding process that successful bidder follows. But we can get into that with town council, too.
Just comment. I've been trying to recuse myself from most of this, but I would like to put in 2 points here. First of all, I don't know exactly that I'm totally convinced that we as a select board would have to do the bidding, that there wouldn't be other options we could do, because it's been turned back from the town to us to make that decision now. But second of all, keep in mind that this whole property there is under the ag preservation restrictions already, so it's already pretty restricted.
Right.
I don't know what more you would want to add to that.
Yeah.
I think planning just said about water
Well, they just reminded us about the easement.
Well, there's, I believe,
all that.
I believe there's 2 different APRs on the property. I know there's at least one. There is the easement for the town drainage that's, or right away. I'd have to, I think it's an easement for the town drainage that's on it. I'd have to go back and take a look and see if anything else is on it, but all those would obviously be required to stay in place, and those are already somewhat restrictive to, the parcel.
Okay.
They are, and I think the way this was laid out and mapped, if I'm not mistaken, I think this might be considered landlocked even. So in terms of its value, if you put it out to bid, I'm not sure that it's really got a lot of value.
And I think a lot of this goes away if hypothetically an abutter or somebody using the land now gets ownership of this because it becomes contiguous with their current property. So, it makes it a lot easier to make sure the land's protected. If somebody came from outside and bought that land, then the abutters are going to have issues with that land. But if it wasn't a abutter that got the property, that would be a lot easier to maintain it, I would think.
Well, like Christine says, there are existing, APR restrictions and whatever on it, and it may very well be landlocked. So, would it make sense for somebody that doesn't abut it, which there may be only 2 people, to actually buy it and then not be able to access because they don't have approval from one of the contiguous parcels to access it. So
I think we asked, though, to have it checked if it was truly landlocked or not. If it is, I think we need to know either way. Just, if it's landlocked, it is. If it's not, it's not. But I think we need to know. And we looked at plans, and depending on who was looking at the plans, somebody would say, well, it's not landlocked, and others would say, well, it is. So I'm not sure, but I think however we dispose of it, we've got to be clear on what it is and isn't, so that nobody comes back to the town.
So I would appreciate it if you would be willing to propose a process that we can move forward on this.
Okay.
I think this was,
Especially
something that was
since-
approved by the voters. We checked in with the committees that we had asked to, and I just want to keep this going.
Yeah, and growing season's coming up, and that's another reason to transfer it soon.
And I think it's the erosion is not getting any better there.
Yeah.
And the faster we can help by doing something about it, the better. Next is the remote participation of members at public meetings. Very timely topic. I think we had talked about it, had general agreement about being able to do it with the guidelines that were given, and I think the next step was going to be that it was going to be outlined a little bit more in a user-friendly ways in terms of how it's, so that could be communicated. Okay, is that what everybody remembers?
And Christine sent me her thoughts on it today, so
Okay.
I haven't been through them. And actually, believe it or not, while we talk about remote participation, and I will say my left hand, and the original conversation be my right hand,
Right.
they're really 2 different processes and requirements. However, what we are trying to now be forced into implementing in a short period of time actually may help us out with the original conversation. So Chris and I will keep working on that together, and we'll bring something back.
Great. Hampshire Regional Budget and Expenditure, everybody has a copy of that. Francine, do you want to start the discussion about it?
And actually, I put that in the package because Principal Kristen Smitty had sent her report into us, and I also think it had a school council report with it. So I put those in there for updates, and I included their final budget package because they had sent that along also. But it was originally in there for Principal Smitty's basically reports that she had sent along.
Right, and I'm hopeful that they will come and we'll have a conversation face-to-face with the school administration and the select board if we don't exceed 10 people, that we can do that. My comments on it to begin with, first and foremost, I think the negligible, and I'm using that word loosely, but negligible amount of increase this year compared to prior years is really very remarkable. And I have to give them a lot of credit for really turning over every stone and really trying very hard to keep the costs down. There are some unavoidable expenses, and that's the capital on the building that comes in at $178,000, $178,500. But the commitment is that there will be for 3 years, there'll be a moratorium on building capital. So they absolutely need to have these things done. And then for the next 3 years, they'll hold off on any other building capital improvements just in order to kind of balance it out. So overall, this is probably the smallest increase I've seen in all the years that I was on finance as well. So I appreciate that. The only thing that I've asked for, and will be getting, I believe very shortly, is a little more information on central office and how that impacts us, because there are two pieces here. The central office, which is on the first page here, turns out to be $499,000 and some change. That represents only 35% of the expense to operate the central office. The other 65% then is allocated out at the same assessment for each of the. No, I'm not sure that that's true. Anyway, the remaining 65% is allocated to the elementary schools that make up our regional district. I don't see any detail on that. I would like to see a comprehensive, this is Southampton, this is Williamsburg, this is Chester, on and on and on. And so I've asked for that, and I'll have a conversation about it and see where we go. I just want to know more. That's all. But
I don't think I've ever, and we've asked more than once, we've never had a comprehensive budget provided to us at Hampshire Regional. They have never given us the total budget of the school. It's only Southampton's portion. Mm-hmm. And I think that when it comes to especially central office, I think it's been very little blind.
Right. So we need to get a little more transparency there. But overall, I think in terms of the impact on our town this year is a lot less than I would have expected under these circumstances. I agree. So I appreciate the work that they do.
Ed?
Didn't know if Christine wanted to, Francine wanted to read Principal Smitty's report. I'm willing to do that, and if she doesn't, I'm fine with that. I did want to follow up on one piece that I'm trying to get an answer for the Capital Committee. And one thing that has, I won't say concerned me, but I'll say piqued my interest is this is being presented to us, and here's what we need, here's your assessment. You fund it how you want to, whether you want out of your own cash appropriation or if you want to borrow for it. I ended up contacting our representative at DLS, Department of Local Services, and asked him if he could put me in touch with someone that might be very good in regional school district financing. And he just sent me back an answer today, because I think they've been out of the office and working remotely to some extent. So I'm going to follow up on that. But here's my somewhat concern. I've only had 4.5 years of experience somewhere else with regional school district. They did their budget, and their capital assessment's totally different than ours does. In that experience, if it was a relatively substantial project and was going to be borrowed for, that regional district did the borrowing because it's their project. They have control over it, and whatever. And then they would take that out and they would say, okay, we're going to do this for 10 or 15 years. Here's the suggested costs. Here's what your basically the estimated is for your portion of paying back that borrowing. In this particular case, when they leave that up to their 5 different communities, and some could say, we're going to give you the cash for that. We want to borrow for that. Well, if we wanted to borrow for that, and $280,000 is a good chunk of money for us to appropriate if we wanted to do that without borrowing. I don't know if we really have the ability to borrow for somebody else's project. In this case, the district. So that's what I'm trying to find out for capital right now, and it's probably the one piece of the puzzle that's really got me scratching my head at this point in time. So I'm going to work with the contact that Matt Andre gave me at DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, on that particular question.
You know, Ed, I had looked when this first came about that the capital was going to be separated from the operating budget. I had looked back at the regional agreement, which is archaic. I mean, even the font of it is like 1970s. And there was nothing that I read in there that prevented them from presenting it this way. But I'm just wondering, with your experience with regional schools, even if it was brief, did you find that they went to the individual towns for capital expenses and they did separate out from the operating budget?
They did, and every year it was, basically separated out. But like I say, if it was, small projects, it could be presented in, okay, here's your assessment for the year, whether it's $25,000 or $35,000 or $50,000, and the project's done, it's paid for, and whatever. If it was a larger project, and we know there's some precedents, because I know that at one point in time when they, did the upgrade or the addition onto the school, that all flowed down to us through a borrowing. So, like I say, my question...
The school did the borrowing and then trickled
right,
down the borrowing.
But it goes back to my question is, generally when I've seen this, the regional district does the borrowing. They control, like I say, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depending on what the project is. They know what those estimates are, and they say to their 5, 6, 7...
We're borrowing. Here's your portion of the borrowing.
Here's your portion of it.
Prove that.
Right. And like I said, yes, we as a subset of that regional district end up guaranteeing that borrowing for them. It goes into our auditing reports and whatever. But I have never seen an instance where it's like, okay, well, you can pay cash for it, you got to borrow, but if you're borrowing it, you're going out and doing it on your own.
Yeah.
Matt, has the capital committee looked at these yet?
No, we've looked at them, but we wanted some guidance on this. I don't know. There's part of me that just doesn't. Why does it matter if we pay cash, or why does it matter if we borrow? I don't necessarily see the point. I mean, I get that the district could borrow for it and hand down that amount, but then effectively, I don't know. There's part of me that it's like, if you're still funding it. You're funding a project that you don't. I mean, if your concern is that we're buying something that we don't own, it's the same way. It doesn't matter how we fund it.
My concern is, would we be doing it legally? And would the bond council look at it and say, yeah, this, or the state look at it and say, yes, you can do that?
Oh, okay.
Not technically our
You're
project.
taking on a
it's-
liability
Yeah,
that
that's
you
fine.
can't control,
Yeah,
possibly.
Okay, that's fine.
because right now they're kind of leaving it up to the towns to determine whether they want to do cash or borrowing. So
Or either, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they're doing it right now leaves the ultimate flexibility to the towns, which
It does.
Certainly I appreciate
Right.
and prefer, honestly.
Oh.
But I get that there might be some legalese
Yeah.
that doesn't work there, and so that I can respect that too. I mean,
Yeah, and DESE might get back to me and say, yeah, you're fine with doing that, but I just want to
Yep.
find out
That's
before
fine.
we get there.
Yeah. Anything else?
that works.
Any other questions about the budget?
No, I'm just hopeful that, they're scheduled for the first Monday of every month, that their next monthly meeting actually does take place. It's maybe bumped or it may be remote. I don't know. We'll have to look into that. But the board, the school committee did pass this budget. And they presented it in February, and at their March meeting, they voted to accept it. So it's a done deal. It went out to all the towns now. Okay. Ed, did you mention you want me to read?
I said, I'm happy to do it, but I don't want to step on your toes if
No,
you want to read it. So, but I'm happy to do it.
Do you think it's necessary that it be read? I mean,
That's 3
I'll
pages,
read.
right?
Pardon?
3 pages.
Yeah.
Up to you. I mean, up to you as the board. I mean, you have it for your own information. So.
Everybody got this in their packet ahead of
Right,
time.
yep.
Yep.
So do you feel like it's necessary
I
to
don't
read
think we
it?
should read it. I think we should include it in the minutes. And if
Sure, that's a
people
good
wanna-
idea.
yeah,
Include it as a document with the minutes. I
Right.
think that's
Yes.
a great idea.
I'm
It
fine
could be
with that.
online and.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Because,
I'd like to say that the principals does a great job in communicating with the town, and we get lots of updates, and we also get student updates, so appreciate that.
I agree.
The last item on the old business is an update on the Doers Green Communities Grant. I know we got an extension for submitting what we hope would be savings. Any updates?
Yeah, actually, I was able to talk with them. Got back in touch with them at the beginning of the week, and they understand the situation that we're in, and actually have said we don't have to turn one in for this year. They have just asked me to make sure that to get everything in place, which I'd have to do anyway, so that the one that'll be due in December of 2020 is ready to go, which will give me the opportunity to. I can't believe how fragmented our invoices are for some of the departments, especially getting them from, back from some of the schools, because it's actually very detailed information. It's not just, okay, on such and such a date, you spent X amount of dollars with Y company for whether it's gas or fuel oil or whatever. And as I got into it, it was interesting because in the past, everyone's gotten their fuel from the highway department dispersed, which would have a report of it. Here we have departments that, yes, they can get their diesel there, but gas is gotten with the WEX cards. So you got to go back for basically almost, well, now it would be almost 2 years for getting those specific WEX cards reports from the individual departments that do it. So, and their regional coordinator is willing to help me with that, and also willing to help me with the fact that, okay, well, there's a bunch of companies out there that work with Eversource as far as lighting and electrical upgrades go, whether it's here or Norris School, because of the fact that our original application didn't have as much detail on the energy savings as they would like. It means that we can only use certain companies that can give them that proposed energy savings along with their proposals for whether it's changing out lights, motors, HVAC controls or whatever. And it's also difficult to find a company that basically does, okay, not only an assessment and works with Eversource on the lighting piece, but might do the energy savings in the proposals for whether it's insulation, new doors, or whatever. So we might actually end up in a position that have to use one company to do the electrical piece and another company to do the items such as the attic insulation here, or doors or other pieces over at the Norris School.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, they are just asking for a a compiled report by December 2020.
Correct, which will be the next annual report that's due.
Okay.
So I've got to figure out all the methodology, which actually probably, once it's established going forward, is easy enough, because what I will end up asking once I've discovered if I've missed any, the department heads to do is, okay, when you do this and submit your bills to the town, please scan it, copy it, whatever, and get me a copy of that. And then at that point in time, I'll be able to enter it into MEI, or my hope is that I'll be able to also teach Judy how to do that, and she can do some of it.
But if you've got different departments using the WEX card, for example, when those go into Vicky and she does all her reports, that can't be sidelined out?
Well, don't forget, we're going back to 2018. So, like I say, going forward, once you establish the practice, it's fairly easy. Right now, it's going back and saying to these departments of, okay, this is what I need. Do you have it in your records, and can you send it to me? Versus trying to dig through all the accounting records, which they could be anywhere, as far as in any particular warrant.
Yeah, I see what
So
you're
there
saying.
wouldn't have been a year-end total for the WEX cards, for example, from all departments? The end of the fiscal year?
I would
No?
doubt it,
No?
because each one's getting their bills separately.
Got to be a better way to consolidate.
Well, yeah, I mean, and those are the hard pieces. I mean, the easy part is the Eversource piece is basically you set up once you know if you've missed any, like park accounts or what have you. Once you've actually set those up in MEI with the account numbers for the appropriate buildings, those actually automatically flow in there from the Eversource reports. So those we don't have to deal with.
I know with like credit card bills and such, I mean, I would get monthly statements, but then I can run annual reports, categorizing it and slicing and dicing it, and it just seems like there might be opportunities to look at it differently instead of retrieving it, once it's already dispersed to different departments. And I think we talked about the possibility and opportunity to actually see some savings out of this and some consolidation.
Well, that's the goal out of it,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and it depends. There may be a year-end report, and then it's just okay. With that year-end report, does it have the detail on the year-end summary of what we need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do people want to include these items going further, or is there anything we can take off the list, just for some guidance on the subsequent agenda? Probably take off the Old Town Hall study, or just include that in your annual
For now,
report?
yeah.
Okay, new business. We already talked about the COVID-19, and then Memorial Day Parade. I think we should probably just put that on hold for now until we know what's what. Unless you have something to say about that. Okay. Renew the ambulance borrowing note. We have a couple of notes.
And this one got a little more complicated today because the actual documents for you to sign were supposed to be here this afternoon. They did not show up. Unibank had an issue with their FedEx pickup yesterday, so they won't be here till tomorrow by 1 o'clock. So what I would respectfully ask you to do is, you do have the summaries in your packets, so I would like to request is that you do vote to approve these two borrowings by vote this evening, and that at least three of you, of which three of you I can see that are fairly local and might
actually
have
off
some time on
tomorrow.
your hands tomorrow.
I'm actually off tomorrow, so I can swing by.
Yeah, would volunteer to stop in the treasurer collector's office tomorrow,
Okay.
sometime after 1, and actually sign the documents you approve tonight for the borrowings, and then we can get them back to Unibank.
Okay.
And as you see, there's some probably definite downside financial impacts to COVID-19. There are actually some, in this particular case, positive sides, because
Oh, yeah.
we got some excellent rates back. And there's two different pieces here. The ambulance, originally when they set it up, and I don't know why it got set up this way, but you can do State House notes, and there's two ways to do them. You can do one-year notes, and you can renew them every year. You can also say, okay, well, we want to borrow for that, whatever it is, in this case, an ambulance, but we'd like to do that on a 3-year, 4-year, or 5-year State House note. So what we're looking to do here is finish that ambulance up and do it on a 3-year note.
Yeah.
So that's a 3-year commitment to take care of the balance on the ambulance borrowing. The other one is really a very short-term borrowing, which is to bridge the gap between now and I believe it's May 25th, if my memory's correct, for some water borrowings, because we've got some of those that are currently coming due, but we're going out to do a major bonding with some refinancing that the target date is May 25th. We're rolling a bunch together, doing some other water borrowings. So what we're looking to do is bridge that short gap between now and May 25th with this short-term borrowing.
Can I just ask a question on the ambulance? The interest rates are, one is more than double. Why do they vary?
These are you're looking at the summary of the bids that were received.
Okay.
So it's getting awarded to
Greenfield.
So we're going with Greenfield.
We're going with Greenfield, which is a rate of 1.25%.
Thank you.
But those banks that actually bid on this issue were Greenfield Cooperative, Easthampton Savings, which, from my experience, Easthampton Savings is usually pretty aggressive. Newburyport 5 Cent Savings Bank, Adams Community Bank, and People's Bank. But the awarding rate is to Greenfield for 1.25, but the other bidding rates were 1.90, 2.08, 2.25, and 2.65.
Right.
And then conversely with that very short-term borrowing to refinance for a couple months, there was 4 bidders. Greenfield Cooperative is the low bid, 1%. Over that period of time. Easthampton Savings Bank was very close. They were at 1.20. People's Bank was 1.39, and Unibank for savings was 1.5.
Now, Ed, in that same area where it says reoffer, it says NRO. What does that mean?
On the far column, the right column,
Reoffer.
NRO.
Good question.
Oh, no reoffer.
No what?
You see how it's under reoffer?
Yeah.
The top column. NRO is no reoffer.
And what does that mean?
It means that it won't be reoffered.
No
This is one
renegotiating.
time.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, thanks.
And then on the principal payments, if I'm understanding, there's 3 payments due on the ambulance at $68,000. Is that right? Is that what's
sounds
remaining?
correct, yes.
That's all that's remaining on the ambulance?
Well, it's 3 years.
Right.
It's not just 3 payments, it's 1 payment each year on those notes for $68,000.
Right, so 68,000 times 3 is the amount due.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So about probably about a little over 200,000.
So, Rini, you want me to make a motion? Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we accept the 2 lowest offers, one for the ambulance and one for the water system.
I'll second that.
Do should we specify the actual bidder?
Sure, please.
Greenfield Cooperative Bank for the
Authorize the specific bidder.
ambulance at
Greenfield.
1.25% and the water, Greenfield Cooperative Bank for 1%, which is a great rate.
Yes,
And was there a second on that?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was.
Oh, who seconded?
I did.
Oh, okay, Francine, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion?
And that's, you're accepting them and at least 3 of you will come in tomorrow and sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can come in tomorrow.
I can come in.
Yeah, I can come in, yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I mean, you have 3 people coming in?
Chris, John,
And you.
me.
Okay.
And Francine, if you want to make it a 4th, that's fine too.
I don't have to if you need 3.
And was that a unanimous vote?
Yes.
I don't know if you voted, but yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And that'll definitely be in by 1.
That's what Jen told me.
1 o'clock.
Could you text
Today.
us?
Maybe text out.
I can text out,
When it comes
yeah,
in, that'll
absolutely.
be helpful instead of us bothering you.
Rainey, did you call the vote?
I thought I did, but let's be sure.
We
All
did a
those in
second. I don't
favor?
think we voted.
Aye.
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 Thank you. I don't think I did. Okay. Agenda again.
Oh, and just, I forgot, I brought this, and I'll just read it even though you voted on it. And this is the email Jen got this afternoon at about 3:15 today. Both of us were panicking about this and wondering where FedEx was. And it says, and it's from our Unibank representative. It says, Jen, I was just informed that there was an issue with the FedEx pickup yesterday, so the documents for all our note sales did not go out until today. Tracking number is, it should be there around 1 p.m. tomorrow, if not earlier. I apologize for this and would have followed up sooner had I known this happened.
Great, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, at least we'll get it signed off. The last,
So can I ask a question?
sure.
I just got a text that says, watching meeting is borrowing for ambulance at 1.25% for all 3 years. It says typically it's much cheaper to do a 1 year, pay down the budget amount, and then reborrow. There would be 0 cost to do that if Jen did the paperwork. So it should be for all 3 years. I think that's what we have on
Yes.
It
It's
is
all
for
3
3
years.
years. The
Yeah.
water's
Okay.
1,
Yeah.
but the ambulance is 3.
3.
Yeah. So it is for 3 years, yeah.
Is that what,
Okay.
is that what the point was? It was
Borrow 1 year at a time?
for a 1 year at a time?
Is that was the point?
I read it as for all 3 years.
It's all 3 years.
It's all 3
Correct.
years.
Yes.
Yes.
And it has the principal payments there on the side, which are equal, which would indicate it's the same interest, right?
For all 3 years, yes.
Right.
But thanks for texting the question in.
Okay, so next and last of the new business is the Boston Post-Cane. So Lucy was able to connect up with the oldest Southampton resident, and Mary Balfour is going to be awarded the Boston Post-Cane. Her preference is to not have a big celebration in front of everybody, but what we agreed to do would be to actually put her name up on the plaque, get a plaque for her and a certificate, and we'll discuss having it be presented to her either through the senior center or through the town clerk's office. So just want to congratulate Mary Balfour as the oldest resident, who is currently, I believe, 97 years old.
Correct.
And I also just want to mention that there are 3 other people that are turning 97 this year. And I do believe at the Celebrate Southampton event, there will be an attempt to have a little birthday celebration in honor of our 4 97-year-olds. Actually, it says turning 97 in 2020. So actually in July, she will officially be 97. And the other people that will be turning 97 this year are Leona Hendrick, Theodore Hendrick, and Doris Pennington. So congratulations to all of them, but Mary Balfour will be awarded the Boston Post-Cane.
That's going to be quite a lot of candles being lit there.
Yeah,
And I
that'd be great.
Well, they must say something about life is good in Southampton.
Right, remember the water, remember the
497
water
year olds,
quality?
Yeah.
And I have dropped off the plaque for the engraving to
Oh,
be
wonderful.
added out here, and have ordered the award plaque for Mary
Oh,
Balfour.
great. And will that be done through the senior center or through the town clerk's office, one of them?
No, I'll figure out, yeah, one way or the
Okay, let me
the
know
other.
if you want
Yeah.
any help.
Okay.
Yeah,
can
if we can
certainly,
get a
hand
picture
deliver
of
it.
Mary, yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, that would be nice. I don't know if I don't think she wants fanfare.
No, she definitely doesn't.
So anyway, congratulations, Mary, if you're watching. We appreciate. All right, so Next we have, it says PCFs.
Yes.
Okay, and this is, they're not really under PCFs, they're under new business. And these are all PCFs and PRFs that actually started through the process before PPPB actually had their public hearing and voted not to require the Finance Committee signatures, but finished the process after. They have not been signed off by Finance as of yet. They are Ann Ryan, part-time fire,
That's a resignation.
Resignation.
a resignation. Catherine Workman is resignation for part-time fire. Tyler Struthers, part-time fire, would be on-call firefighter, EMTs. These are actually all been approved so far through by PPPB and the Select Board. Shane Gilbert, part-time fire,
Signed off on this.
on-call fire, yeah. Dawn Young, part-time non-benefit town clerk. And then I think one was an emergency. Yeah, one was an emergency, and one is a regular for
what's
Dawn
the
Young. James Murphy, which is
A
Resignation.
resignation.
resignation. Kenneth Cole, an emergency and regular for the part-time backup van driver for the COA, and then the PRF for the Council on Aging for the backup van driver. So these have not been signed off by Finance. Since the time they started, PPPB did vote to not require the Finance signatures. With the fact that we don't have a quorum of Finance Committee members currently, Art Lawrence, chair of the PPPB, asked if the proper way would be to bring these back to the Select Board and get your approval to finalize them without the Finance signatures.
Okay.
So I'm here to ask you if you would please vote to say that we are accepting these and they are approved without the Finance signatures.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things we're going to end up doing that we have to do just out of necessity, such as this, to get them through. So I think this is one of those items we have to move forward.
But also, if they've already voted not to need Finance Committee approval, and that was actually part of the Department of Revenue's recommendation way back when, we can continue to do that without Finance, right?
Yeah, now we can, but those
We
were
can.
done before.
Right.
That's
Right.
all.
Yeah, these were ones that kind of
Yeah.
Got caught in the middle.
got caught in the middle.
Yeah, we don't want to hold up the show.
Right now, we won't have the finance chair signature line on there, do we, on the new form, do we?
The new forms do not have
Yeah.
the Finance.
Right, so that should be a
Sure.
little easier all the way around.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think this is, let's keep these moving, for sure.
Okay.
Do we need to,
I think we
Need to vote.
I think we do
Yes,
need to have a
please.
vote.
we need to vote?
Yes.
Oh,
You made it already, it was already made, you made it?
Matt,
Second?
and I
And John
second.
All those in
seconded.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Any other business that can't wait until the March 31st Select Board meeting?
we still need Finance Committee members. We don't have a quorum. I believe there's 3 seats open.
Correct.
And come May, there'll be 4.
Four,
I've called probably a dozen people, and you're not getting anybody interested in doing it. Not even try to convince them for the short term just to see what it's like. And
I've done the same. A lot.
It's unfortunate.
I was able to
I
find
haven't
school
heard.
committee people, but not.
Yeah. See, it's too bad. Wasn't there somebody that
have a phone
from the
number.
Council on Aging? No.
Backup van drivers.
Yeah,
got
he has
some
a
background, actually.
banking
He
background.
does have a banking background.
Well, we have to keep, trying to drum up some help there. That's a big deficiency there.
Huge.
Okay, no further signatures, no license and permits, but how about warrants, Francie?
Okay, warrant. PD 20-12C, it's a reversal for $1,187.62 for payroll deduction. We have P 20-36 for $272,996.71 payroll warrant. PD 20-37 36 for $43,396.22. It's a payroll deduction. And then the vendor payable warrant W 20-37 for $82,970.03.
Any questions on the warrants? Next time, if we could just have the update on the expenditure, revenue expenditures, yeah, that'd be great.
I think at one point I'd asked if we could have some kind of an update on the Belden agri-grid thing, just out of
Oh, yeah,
curiosity, how
right.
that's performing for us, if it is.
Yeah, I was asked to be on one of the upcoming meetings, and that was probably the only one I hadn't stuck on this one because I
Okay.
thought it was
Right.
long too, but yeah, I am aware of that.
Okay, town caucus warrant we already took care of, and the special election warrant, we'll wait to see if the dates change. We have no regular session minutes to approve. We have pending items, most of them we covered. I don't know if we have to keep this dog complaint on there. Hopefully things have been quiet on White Loaf.
Yeah, we talked about that last meeting and
Yeah.
taking it off.
Yeah, but Ed, I think he wasn't here the last one, so we'll ask him this time. Maybe we can, no word on that?
Actually, I got word yesterday there's a new issue out there, so it'll be back on.
It still
Same.
is?
It's still an issue?
New dog.
Oh, are you kidding?
What was that?
New dog.
Amazing.
Same owner, new dog?
Same owner, new dog.
Same problem?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, well. Guess it's not the dog. Right? Jeez. Yes?
One other item that I actually thought I had put on here, and I hadn't, but Francine had, or Lucy had brought it up earlier, and Rainey, you had asked me if I could take a look and get an update on the bylaw review with KP law.
The
Yes.
legal
Yes.
expenses.
Legal expenses. So just wanted to let you know that, and this is through January 31st, so we won't see the February bill, which will have some on it too, until the end of this month, the end of March. But just to let you know, it'll probably be slow coming. I had actually asked, before I knew what we had been charged to this point in time for the bylaw review, that if Michelle would turn 2 more reviews around for us. So we still are owed 2 more reviews on my authorization. They might not come through for a while with everything else going on, but through the end of January, and there'll still be some costs coming in for February, which I won't have till the end of this month. On bylaw review, the cost was $2,128. We had an original legal budget of $30,000, and after that January bill, we have a balance of $12,756.40. And one of the things I'll just remind you of is, as we went down this road with our legal budget and whatever, this was always intended to this point in time as bylaw review. This has turned into recodification. So if we're going to continue with any substantial portion of recodification during fiscal year 21, we should probably substantially increase the legal budget above $30,000.
The other thing is that we have prioritized the ones that we feel,
Right.
that for budget consideration. So now that we have a number to work with, if it costs $21.28
That was
for
for 6 of them?
4 or
4 of them.
6,
Well, that's not complete. We still got a bill that'll come for February, so that's only a partial cost.
all right. So once we get the February bill, we'll get a better sense then of how much given a certain number, and then we'll plan accordingly for next year and stay within the budget. And if we have to put things off beyond that, if economics dictate that, then I guess.
And we
we'll
have no
to do
choice
that.
but to use KP, I take it. We can't use any kind of local.
I would not recommend that, no. And the other thing I'll just throw out, and this is my own thought process, is rather than working on new bylaws, you might want to concentrate on the existing bylaws that need changing.
Well,
I think we've
done both.
Yeah, I think out of the ones that we've already given you that have gone to KP that they're holding right now and haven't looked at, I think we were going to try and prioritize those, right, Francine?
Yes.
That not all of those were as urgent. There were a couple that were,
Right.
that we wanted to move. But there are two that we've just been working on. One in particular has been a request of several townspeople on the nuisance bylaw. So between nuisance and
And the
another one, which
police.
would be solicitation, I think those are two that have been very much on the minds of many townspeople that we'd like to put forward as new ones at some point. Maybe not until September.
I'd like to see that early on, really. I guess my discomfort comes with bylaws that create social norms. And I think that's when you get into difficulties with some people in town setting rules about how other people should behave. And I think there are class implications, and there are a lot of implications, cultural implications. And I just really want to make sure that we're an inclusive community and that we're not setting up expectations that aren't consistent with the way some people choose to live.
No,
I mean,
understood.
I'm not saying, I haven't even read this, so I'm not even saying that it's, but I'm just know that once you start crossing over into social norms, and I do think, what's considered a nuisance and not might be very, very clear, and I don't know that, but I just know that.
I mean, we work very closely with the police on this, and this meets their needs
Yeah.
for the kinds of complaint calls that they get.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, Chris?
Yes, I mean, it gives them a little bit more of a guidance in terms of what could be enforced and not.
And it gives
Right.
townspeople some parameters to understand, and that's really it.
So I think,
Okay.
we try to bring that forward. Maybe at the next meeting, we could do that, or
Sure.
a couple meetings from now. It's ready to go in terms of draft for the select board to review at least, because we've had both, it's actually had police, fire, and who else? Ag Commission's taken a look, and
We've had building, yep.
and building inspector has, yeah.
The only thing I can, hope for is if we go forward with this E360, which is that company that manages and updates bylaws for towns, that maybe we could offset some of the legal costs there. I don't know that for sure. I keep asking the question. We still don't have the answer, but when they come and do the presentation, maybe that we have some, if we let them go through it before we send it to our attorney, we may find that there's a savings there. I don't know that yet. I just want to
They
try it
create
out.
bylaws for lots of communities.
Yes,
So,
they do.
before we spend too much money down the road, if this is the way that
Right.
people want to go, it would
To
make
do that.
sense to adopt
Yes.
that, because they would then
Right.
create them in ways that were legally, acceptable.
Already there.
And,
It might require less time of our lawyers if it's the requirement that our lawyers look at any changes that we make.
Right.
It would require less of their time and effort. I'm hoping. Anyway, thank you.
great, yep.
And there was one item that got skipped over under new business, and I think that's because of the fact that we also had the signing of the election warrants, but annual town meeting and warrant submittal. My recommendation is that you vote to open up the lines of requests for submittal of the articles for the annual town meeting, and that you vote to close those submittals on the assumption that we'll still have the
May meeting.
annual town meeting on May 5th, which may not happen, but at least if it does, we'll have a time to put everything together, have articles reviewed for that warrant, and still have it posted a week before the annual town meeting. So my recommendation would be to have everything back by April 17th.
Okay.
Is that something we have to vote, or isn't that a window that is usually created once backdating from the election? No?
I would vote to open up
Okay.
the
Sure.
the submittal of articles for the annual town meeting, and that they
Okay.
be required to be submitted no later than
April 17th.
April 17th.
Someone like to do that then?
I'll make a motion to open up the timeframe for submitting warrants for the annual town meeting with the closing date of April 17th.
I think that's right. Well, let me,
It's a Friday.
hang on, let me check that.
It's a Friday.
So if they come in on a Friday,
April
let's
17th?
say, boom,
Is that 2 weeks
Boom.
before the
The
election?
week you've got 10.
Yeah.
8th. That might be a little,
Actually,
nah.
Here's the 17th.
Make it Friday, April 10th.
Friday, April 10th.
Yeah, because they still have to come back and be
And we have to go
approved
over them here.
and signed, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right,
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to make that deadline date, submission of the articles for the town, for the warrant for the annual town meeting,
Okay.
be April 10th.
So I guess the question, since meetings are being canceled all over the place, is this going to give committees enough time to meet and come up with any articles they want, or individuals even? It's only a few weeks away.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, we have to assume that everything will go along and we'll still have May 5th. That may not be the case, but like I say, they still need time to come, some of them be reviewed, have them approved, put into a warrant form, and have them signed somewhere before the 7-day
So
posting
we don't have
requirement.
extra week in there that we could build in?
I wouldn't recommend it.
No?
And like I say, going forward, it's a moving target. It's going to become this board's responsibility. If we need to move that date, we move that date. And then maybe we move the deadline for the submittal too.
Seems kind of,
I'm fine with that. That's good.
okay. So there was a motion, was there a second? I think, was the motion include the earlier date in
Yes,
April?
I amended it to make it
Okay.
April 10th.
All right.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who had the second?
I did.
Thank you.
Thanks for catching that, Ed.
Thank you. There was something in the back of my mind that
Yeah.
I knew we needed to do, and I couldn't figure out what it was for a while.
While we're at it, do we want to look at the dates in April? The next meeting is the 31st. I was supposed to be gone, but now I don't know if I am. I was supposed to be in California. So there is the meeting on the 31st. The next one would be on the 14th. And then after that would be the
28th.
28th. So you want to just pencil those in?
Yep.
That sound all right? Good.
14th and the 28th, you said?
Yep. So if anybody from the public has any questions or comments, you can go ahead, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, and send questions, and we will address them at the next Select Board meeting. We will be going into executive session. We will not be returning to open session. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
And would you please read the reasons?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. There are 3 items, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and that's Fulmer Road, the Charter Building. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, College Highway. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant-in aid requirement, approval of executive session minutes, January 7th, 2020. We have a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
I'll second it.
All in favor, roll call?
Martin, aye?
Tishman, aye.
Roland, aye.
Fowles, aye.
Roden, aye. Thank you and good night.
Who made the motion?
John?
John did.
John? And second?
No, I think I made the motion.
Okay.
Oh, Francine made it and I seconded it. How's that?
One or the other.
All right. 5-minute break?
Sure.